If you scroll YouTube long enough, you'll likely stumble across attempts to curate the most challenging films ever made down to some kind of disturbing movie iceberg. Corralling together a few iconic works of unpleasant art, a whole heap of edgelord trash-flavoured trash, and some envelope-pushing endurance tests from the four corners of world cinema, talk of provocative movies largely skews towards guttural violence, abrasive imagery, and minor key miserablism. That is, with a few notable exceptions, including a comedy called Happiness.
Are you sure?
Oh, yes.
Yes, one of the most extreme and affecting movies ever made looks like this.
Hey, Joe. What's up? How's Johnny doing?
You're a dead man.
Oh, good. Good.
Three wildly different sisters and the people they encounter are all going through the motions. That is, until their carefully curated mask slips just enough to reveal the transgressive, sickening depths they will sink to in a twisted attempt to feel less alone. For 25 years, Happiness has been a hard-to-recommend masterpiece that's proven difficult to celebrate for two distinct reasons. First, it's been stuck on out-of-print, hastily mastered VHS and DVDs, mired by picture quality one hair above trying to watch it through a soiled carpet, but hey, it's now been lovingly restored in glorious 4K. So forget about that. The real reason Happiness has always been a tough sell is that it's one of the only quote-unquote comedies I have ever seen to leave people weeping with distress and dry-heaving with disgust.
Oh! I'm no good. No good. Nothing. Nothing. Zero.
While it is primarily a parade of darling character actors quietly talking, and with less than 90 seconds of relatively unexplicit violence and nudity in the whole thing, Happiness managed to upset its chief financier so much they pulled distribution, was outright rejected by Robert Redford and the Sundance Film Festival, slapped with an NC-17 certificate and told that there wasn't enough editing in the world to reduce that age rating, and resulted in the CEO of Universal Pictures stepping in to personally ensure that nobody under his corporate banner so much as acknowledged its existence.
What is this movie?
So why all the outrage? Well, that's because this tapestry of loneliness is composed of a waifish romantic, a mumbling office drone, an uptight intellectual, a shy woman from down the hall, and a soft-spoken therapist going through a midlife crisis. Oh, sorry, let me just clarify those notes. I think they might have been a bit vague. So, why all the outrage? Well, that's because this dank basement is bubbling over with a magnet for degenerates, a rancid telephone creep, a narcissistic poet who wants to be violated because she thinks it'll make her a better writer, a borderline personality disorder oversharer with a severed male appendage in her freezer, and finally, the answer to the question, what if Ned Flanders amorously acted on a deep-seated fondness for little boys?
I'm not feeling very well.
Yep, that'll do it. Perhaps the most provocative element of all this, and why reactions to it are still so visceral, is down to the ways in which Happiness slowly coerces the audience into engaging with, and then relating to, the most utterly despicable people you can imagine.
I wanna pump her. Oh, pump.
From Kuleshov effect editing, the guiding lilt of motion picture soundtracks, colour theory and compositional evocations, the strength and resiliency of cinema as an art form largely comes down to its ability to direct and actively manipulate the viewer's thoughts and feelings down avenues that weren't necessarily there before the first reel of the film began. It's just that here, writer-director Todd Solondz is using these tools for the unthinkable. to exploit that reflexive rapport each of us has learned to assign to a film's protagonist in order to coax a relational investment in those many of us would feel guilty to even acknowledge.
What are you wearing underneath? Check.
Underneath? Well, the Damien underneath is just...
I'm gonna call what Solont is doing here, and what he tends to channel throughout each of his films, as empathetic extremity. It's the art of facilitating audience engagement with disagreeable subjects, and illustrating that empathy, pity, and common ground can be cultivated with even those who stand in direct opposition to everything we consider decent and good.
It's so sad. Really, it's pathetic. Such losers. I feel sorry for them.
In the opening breakup scene between Joy and Andy, there's the cringe comedy contrast of the reserved setting and a bawling man failing to hold it together as the world's most polite woman awkwardly looks on. As the static camera makes each of us a third wheel to this, it evokes an aw shucks pang of recognition for both the well-meaning Joy and the kicked to the curb Andy.
Is it someone else?
No, it's just you.
Odds are most of you watching have been on one or both sides of this kind of breakup, and that makes it really easy to feel for Andy. In a matter of minutes, an investment is established in this dejected man before being mutated into a slow backwards walk away from an infantile prick.
Until the day you die, you, not me, will always be shit.
Elsewhere, Alan here is introduced as someone who is proactively undergoing treatment for his impulsive behaviour.
That's good.
Followed by multiple scenes of cowardly jerking off down the phone whilst uttering mealy-mouthed epithets to unaware anonymous women.
Ooh, that's bad.
Okay, so he's maybe 2 notes instead of 1 note. That is, until it becomes readily apparent that his acrid behaviour is driven by crippling issues of attachment, and the depressive belief that these gross intrusions are his only attainable way of connecting. And that context makes any feelings towards him just that bit more ambiguous.
Can I go now?
We also need to talk about the most infamous character, Bill, a quiet yet kind figure of stability and security to his family, who is idolised by his son, who sees him as the only person who doesn't condescend to him during difficult discussions. And all the while, I'm sat with my head in my hands, begging him to stop drugging and interfering with children. These are sobering and difficult to reckon with reminders that people contain multitudes, the worst of us can have worth, and that nobody can ever truly know everything about anyone.
She'll always be alone.
We're all alone.
Oh, Bill.
Of course, other films have challenged their audience with empathetic extremity before, but those are typically couched in stylistic signifiers, exploitation trappings, or documentary formats that amplify the putrid actions of their central figures beyond any reasonable doubt.
Hati nurani saya yang mengatakan harus dihabiskan.
Happiness is so deeply disturbing precisely because it lacks these aesthetic signposts of intent. All we have are the untreated tones and flat, unfussy framing that evokes a sense of family-friendly televised Americana, structured around the fumbling lives of instantly recognizable archetypes that wouldn't feel out of place in just about any sitcom.
You want to seduce your audience, you want to win them over, and no better way than giving them certain kinds of familiar, as they call them, tropes or what have you, from the TV world, and to kind of make it accessible and relatable in a way.
A disenchanted suit-and-tie daydreamer, a schlubby bachelor too nervous to express his feelings, the longing girl down the hall, and a quirky, unlucky-in-love singer-songwriter searching for someone special. Happiness takes these focus group-tested imitations of life and exposes them to the soul-sucking vortex of middle age and degeneracy.
This isn't working.
And with that, these once warming sitcom tropes become a diorama of existential decay. In that sense, Happiness works as an adoring little sister to David Lynch's Blue Velvet, which famously employs its 1950s iconography to highlight the blight lurking beneath the veneer of domesticity. Both films are postmodern explorations of quaint innocence and sexuality enveloped by rot, but crucially, neither succumbs to nihilistic despair or didactic preaching. Solondz feels a duty of care to every one of these people in the same way Lynch does to his Leland Palmers and Frank Booths.
Here's to Ben.
Be polite!
None of this is about intentionally upsetting the audience or striving to cause offense. It's about the things people are capable of doing to try and escape their inner torment. And therein lies the bitter irony of this title. What could validate, inspire, and fulfill that aching and incomplete part of you may well be derived from the irreparably cruel exploitation and dehumanization of those you're required to step over and stomp down on to feel complete.
I touched them.
What do you mean, exactly, touched?
I f***ed them.
What for?
I couldn't help myself.
There's a pulsing sexual, physical, and emotional violence within most of these repressed individuals that keeps hemorrhaging through and swallowing everything around it just to feel fulfilled.
I wanna undress her. I wanna tie her up.
It's a dark counterpoint to the idea that getting in touch with one's true self is an inherently good thing. Who's to say that shedding the false facades of fitting in and embracing your most authentic self wouldn't set loose a ravenous force capable of incalculable collateral damage? How does Bill Maplewood fulfill his hierarchy of needs? By violating young boys. What is Alan Mellencamp's way of bolstering his self-concept? That would be the act of making unsolicited whack-off calls. Of everyone here, Lenny, the father of the three daughters who tie the various narrative threads together, is only able to avoid this calamitous self-actualization by giving up, surrendering to anhedonia, and opting for a relational exile.
Don't feel guilty.
I don't feel anything.
When looking at how the rest of these folks fare in trying to fight off the loneliness, Lenny cutting the umbilical to desire, joy, and want is a flawed but honest attempt at selflessness in a chafing and discordant series of myopic sketches.
Lenny, why?
I don't know. I just want to be alone.
In spite of everything you might be thinking based on my 1,397 exploratory words so far, Happiness is often excruciatingly funny, even when the situation couldn't be further from a laughing matter.
Don't worry. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
But I'm not laughing.
An attempt to spike a preteen at a sleepover turns into Mr. Bean for sociopaths.
Aren't you having any?
Johnny hates chocolate fudge.
Is there something you'd like instead?
No, thank you, Dr. Maplewood.
Leave him alone, honey. He's fine.
No, but there must be something.
A rejected suitor unaliving himself to spite his dinner date feels like something cut from a particularly morose episode of Seinfeld.
You think I'm pathetic? A nerd? A lard-ass fatso?
And the bickering, naive ignorance to all this awfulness becomes so mouth-agape ludicrous that you'll find yourself laughing just to release the tension.
What do you think could happen if I got him a professional?
Professional.
Hooker. You know, the kind that could teach him things. First timers, you know.
But Joe, he's 11.
It's not that the comedy is crass, it's that, as with these characters, it's moved beyond the boundaries of taste and decorum that so often sanitize the filthy truth.
Honey, I'm so happy you're happy. Because all this time I've been thinking you were so miserable.
And here comes the rub. Regardless of the ambitions or acrid ends of these unhinged and unmoored saps, happiness never infers or assigns so much as a whisper of judgment to anyone. Nothing about the homely colour palette, whimsical score, or devoid of hyperbole screenplay is interested in overt or covert sermonizing as to the decent or deplorable facets of these uniquely pathetic people. Much like how David Cronenberg refuses to assign a moral bias to the stories he tells, Solonz is far more interested in eliciting a pure response and challenging our collective need to be babied by art. Because, well, if you need someone to tell you that all of this is bad or that behind every awful act is a multi-dimensional person, then that's on you.
I mean, you have to love your character and believe in the truth of your character and the struggle of your character in order to make it feel real. You can't be commenting on it. You have to inhabit it. And that's what makes it scary, and because it feels real.
When you see the totality of these fraught figures, do you hate them? Does it make you sick to feel sorry for them? Are you looking for restorative justice or a firing squad? To what extent are psychiatric disorders and past traumas something you consider when staring down the barrel of these brutal, life-destroying consequences? And can you reckon with the notion that even the worst person you can imagine can be loved and love in return?
Take a look at yourself. Is there a part of you that finds sympathy in you doing things that aren't good, that aren't right for the world?
A lot of these thoughts that happiness brings to the surface are afflictive and sickening propositions, and that is the point. So disorientating but effective is its empathetic extremity that when this was screened at the New York Film Festival, the audience initially gasped with concern when the predator they had come to know over the last 2 hours was caught, before everyone in the theatre slumped down into their chairs with a newfound sense of hideous compassion for a terrible person, but a person nonetheless. In fact, viewers were so conflicted by their guilt and shameful sympathies that fistfights nearly broke out over it.
The responses by people to the film, I mean, it was nothing I'd ever seen before.
Years later, some critics would even go so far as to admit that their initial reviews were negatively skewed by the free-falling unease of being sat in a dark room and slowly starting to care about these heinous men. Happiness is just that skilled at finding the friction between our conscious sense of justice and the unconscious drive to connect with what we're being presented with. And let me tell you, to applaud this film feels like gluing shards of glass to your hands and trying to clap.
Half the audience will say how funny the movie is and laugh, and the other half will be angry at the first half. How can you laugh?
About 10 years after this shredding gauntlet of humanistic razor wire, Solonz returned with Life During Wartime, a sequel that sees each of these characters repeating the dysfunctions of before, albeit with a fresh coat of denial.
Mommy?
Yes, honey. Are you ready for me to take you to karaoke class?
I ran out of my Klonopin. Do you have any I could have first?
Of course, honey. Just go into my medicine cabinet.
Okay.
A conversational response to happiness that pivots from grotesque empathy to the hesitation marks and defensive wounds of forgiveness, the first thing you'll note is that every single role has been recast. Hi, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh!
Pervert. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's a stunt, but sometimes stunts are interesting and excellent, and this decision perfectly signifies that while these traumatized and traumatizing people have gone through a decade of growth and change, there's always the question of how much of that progress is superficial. Beneath this new skin, they're each still contending with the internal bleeding of betrayal, loss, isolation, and the always present fear of being alone. While it's nowhere near as vital or trying an experience as the masterwork that preceded it, Life During Wartime is a pretty great film in its own right, and, comparatively at least, a lighter affair to take the sting from the tail of all the turbulence.
I don't want anything ever to go inside of me. Not ever.
Oh, Timmy, don't worry. Don't worry. Nothing will ever get inside you. Not so long as I'm around.
That's the name of our movie? Happiness? I could not believe that was the name. And of course, then you see the whole film and you go, how could it be called anything but happiness?
As part of her Criterion retrospective, author and screenwriter Bruce Wagner noted that the corrosive laughter of happiness lives within a dream in which the dreamers suffer day and night, night and day through a hellish Cole Porter loop. They suffer because they're winners and losers, too sensitive, blighted, arrogant, sadistic, dumb, lustful, self-obsessed, isolated, vacant, and tormented, infirm, dying, or disabled, too talented, too beautiful, too human.
I'm living in a state of irony.
Whether or not you would even consider Happiness a comedy comes down to whether you can watch Chris Morris's Jam without shivering, or embrace the sardonic darkness of World's Greatest Dad as more than a succession of jabbed raw nerves. Arguably the sickest joke here is the one Solondz is setting up, and leaving the viewer to fill in the punchline.
You know, I just wish you had done this 20 years ago. Now I'll have to get another fucking facelift.
If you react with performative, screeching outrage, you're showing a lack of emotional intelligence and media literacy skills whilst acting as if the depiction of something bad is the same as endorsing it.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
If you don't react at all or feel too personally connected to this material, then you're gonna look like the biggest red flag walking.
Ooh, I wouldn't do it with anybody younger than my daughter. No, little kids, gotta be big, older than my wife, older than my daughter, something like that.
By pulling extremes from the suburban sprawl and exposing closeted desires by kicking open the doors of self-delusion, Solondz and his all-star cast of character actors, who would have won every Oscar going if it wasn't for the subject matter at hand, sculpt living, breathing reminders of the lengths some will go to and the cruelty they can carry out to feel a part of something bigger than themselves.
I wake up happy, feeling good, but then I get very depressed because I'm living in reality.
If you haven't watched Happiness in a while or have only ever experienced it through botched DVDs or clickbait controversy compilations, there's no better time than now to sit and sink into its rare blend of compassion, cruelty, chuckles, and chilling discomfort. If you've yet to see it and this video has in any way encouraged you to see what all the hubbub is about, you've been warned.
To happiness. To happiness.
Happiness.
A shirtless Philip Seymour Hoffman for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, Jennifer Fetish, Reed Stoven, CC Sings, George Napper, Arden Hughes, John Hughes, Samantha Hughes, Case Hengeveld, Tara O'Connell, and Nicholas Lair-Revere. And don't let the dog eat that for all these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. So, have you seen Happiness, and are there any other films out there with a sense of humour quite this dark? The best way to help out the channel is to like, subscribe, and share these videos wherever you can share these videos. If you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description below to get your name in the credits and join the In Frame Out Film Club. As always, thank you for watching, Until next time, this is In Frame Out.